This is the Freedom Files, a Pursuit of Justice podcast focusing on a wide range of issues involving liberty and justice for people with disabilities, whether they are young adults or seniors or any age in between. Your host is attorney Thomas F. Coleman. Welcome to episode 3 of the Freedom Files, a Pursuit of Justice podcast. I'm your host, Tom Coleman. In the previous episode, I recalled how I was first introduced to the injustices against people with disabilities in the probate conservatorship system in California and guardianship systems in other states. My inquiry went from exposure to just a few cases to an awareness that thousands of adults are being denied access to justice each year in California alone, with tens of thousands being victims of guardianship injustices throughout the nation. In today's episode, we're focusing on a town hall forum co-sponsored by several conservatorship reform advocates, myself included, who are fed up with the status quo. Since elected officials have declined to address this national disgrace, we decided to hold our own forum to create greater public awareness of the nightmare that conservatorship proceedings have been to all too many individuals and families in California. Speakers presented their view from three perspectives. Individuals and families who were personally victimized by the conservatorship system told their stories. Then a collection of private individuals and public officials in Alameda County, who together have been searching for ways to reform the system there, shared their perspectives. Finally, a legal expert who's suggesting specific strategies to improve several parts of the system gave examples of what could be done. That expert was me, and I shared strategies that I have come up with over the last several years of studying the system. One of the reform advocates gave opening remarks to explain the purpose of the forum. Let's listen.
Hello, my name's Cyril Kalbach. Welcome everyone to our first town hall on conservatorship and guardianship abuse awareness. Here, maybe for the very first time ever, victims of California probate court injustices, their family and community leaders will join with activists and advocates to identify and address systemic flaws in the conservatorship process.
Rick Black, the founder of the Center for Estate Administration Reform, has investigated hundreds of guardianship cases. He has found a clear pattern of abuse by professionals who make a living profiting off the system by draining the estates of vulnerable adults through the payment of fees to themselves as fiduciaries or as attorneys. Let's listen to his comments.
That the system that our tax dollars have paid for years is failing us. This class of individuals, whether rich or poor, famous or unknown, black or white, religious or not, has been left out of the protection environment that we expect our tax dollars to pay for.
Carrie Kasem, the daughter of the late national radio celebrity Casey Kasem, spoke of her quest to have legislation enacted to prohibit the isolation of seniors from their families by unscrupulous guardians and conservators. Let's listen to what she had to say.
I had no idea what a massive national problem guardianship and conservatorship was. I had no idea until I started talking about it on the radio. I started being interviewed because it broke, it was a huge story in the news. And I started getting letters, hundreds of letters, whether it was Facebook or literally written letters, or people found my email. I got phone calls. My agent was getting phone calls because people needed help. And I realized this was a huge, huge issue.
By now, many of you have heard of the Free Britney movement that is agitating for the end of the conservatorship of singer and entertainer Britney Spears. She's been living under an order of conservatorship for more than a decade. Let's hear what two of the Free Britney advocates had to say.
Hi, my name is Leanne Simmons, and I am a Free Britney advocate from Los Angeles. Today is a somber day for Free Britney advocates. It marks the 13th anniversary of the day that Britney was placed under conservatorship, February 1st, 2008.
Conservatorship abuse could happen to me, it could happen to you, or someone you care about. But more than that, it is happening to thousands of vulnerable people in this country, a number that will only continue to rise as baby boomers age.
Attorney Lisa McCarley has been practicing law in the probate courts in Southern California for nearly 3 decades. She and I have sometimes wondered whether the impact on her of seeing these injustices perpetrated by judges and attorneys on a routine basis would qualify as post-traumatic stress disorder. Let's listen to a few of her observations.
Mr. Coleman and I have gone to speak to the Judicial Council of California about these problems. I have never gotten a response. It appears to be hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil when it comes to the problems and deficiencies of our California courts. We have wonderful judges. I do not think that this is an act of nefarious behavior. I think that we do not have adequate training, supervision, or accountability of any of the people that are in the probate courts. We need to restore the law in these proceedings. We need oversight. We need people to step to the plate, step up, and understand that this is dysfunctional and contrary to the laws of the state of California.
When it came my time to speak, I emphasized the need to move from complaints to solutions. Sad stories may get the attention of the public, but they don't cause specific reforms to occur. For that, we need concrete proposals directed to officials who have the authority to create the change that we're seeking. Here are the proposals that I shared at the town hall.
First, create a statewide monitor. No one is in charge of the state conservatorship system. It's run by local courts in 58 counties. There is such disregard for the well-being of conservatees that the Chief Justice and the Judicial Council do not even know how many open conservatorship cases exist. We count what we care about. It's clear that the leadership of the judicial branch does not care much about conservatees. We need a statewide monitoring mechanism. Someone should be responsible. Next, clarify the code of judicial ethics. Judges should judge cases, not control the practices of defense attorneys. But that's just what they're doing. Judges are managing court-appointed attorney programs, and by doing so, they're pressuring the attorneys to settle cases rather than providing a vigorous defense to their clients. This is a conflict of interest. Judicial control over the practices of attorneys who appear before the judges violates the code of judicial ethics. This should be clarified, and such attempts to control attorneys should stop. Next, craft a new system for managing attorneys. Management of appointed attorneys should be taken away from the local courts and placed with the Judicial Council at the state level. This has been done in juvenile dependency cases and should be done with conservatorships too. An administrative project would recruit, train, assign, supervise, pay, and discipline appointed attorneys. Local judges should have no more control over these attorneys than they do over public defenders or prosecutors. Next, enact a new law on the right to counsel. In some cases, judges do not even appoint counsel for a proposed conservatee. This is a complex system. Can you imagine someone with cognitive challenges trying to navigate their way and defend themselves against all these other participants? In other cases, the attorneys do what they think the judges want them to do rather than what their client wants. We need a new law to make counsel mandatory and to define the role of counsel as a zealous advocate for the client's wishes and the client's rights, and to set performance standards and have some oversight over what these attorneys are doing. Next, strengthen the enforcement of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The ADA requires that people with disabilities have access to justice in court proceedings. Effective communication and meaningful participation is required. But judges and attorneys are acting as though the ADA does not apply to conservatorship proceedings. It does. There should be repercussions when the ADA is violated. So the state civil rights enforcement agency should get involved. They should have oversight, and complaints should be able to be filed against judges and attorneys when the ADA is violated in these proceedings, investigations conducted by this agency, and action taken against the offending parties. Finally, this is finally for today, but I have another whole list, which I'm not going to get into. Regulate the payment of attorney's fees. The payment of attorney's fees from the assets of conservatees is out of control. It's literally a fee for all. Courts are ordering seniors and people with disabilities not only to pay the fees of court-appointed attorneys, but also the fees of attorneys for petitioners, the attorneys for guardians ad litem, the attorneys for estates are being drained by these attorney fee awards. We should strictly regulate the payment of attorney's fees. New legislation and court rules are needed. And as an aside, I'll just say I've started an attorney fee review process with a team of about 15 people from around the state, including Nate Miley and including the public defender of Alameda County and other people who've been victimized by this. And we're going to be studying and proposing changes in legislation and court rules to take the profit motive out of these conservatorship cases. We'll find some very interesting ways to do this, and we're going to be needing help to pressure the powers to be to make changes.
Before I completed my presentation, I wanted to make sure that the audience would be aware that the problems with conservatorships involve more than money and affect people other than seniors. In fact, it's likely that a majority of conservatorships in California involve adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And most of the problems with these cases involve their civil rights, not their bank accounts. I offered a few stories as examples. Let's take a listen.
Finally, before I close my remarks, I want to emphasize the impact of probate conservatorship system that it has on people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There are nearly 50,000 adults with IDD currently living under an order of conservatorship in California, and about 5,000 new cases of this kind are filed each year in the state. The system not only disrupts the lives of these individuals and violates their basic rights, it can literally kill them. And here are a few examples. Michael P., age 32, Lancaster, intellectual disability. He died after the court-appointed attorney failed to properly investigate the alleged ongoing abuse. Gregory D., 26, Los Angeles, autism. He was forced to spend weekends with a father he said he feared and did not want to see, and was forced to attend church. His court-appointed attorney failed to defend his rights. Another court-appointed attorney actively advocated against him. To this day, he's still being forced to do this. He's an adult. This shouldn't be happening. Elizabeth H., 26, Solano, Down syndrome. She was removed from her home without an evidentiary hearing, and the court refused to recognize her chosen attorney. We've heard that before. Olivia B., 19, Santa Barbara, autism. She was removed from the home of her grandmother where she had lived since the age of 3. Less restrictive alternatives were not seriously considered as required by law. The judges don't even have to check a box about less restrictive alternatives being considered. It's pre-printed on the form that they sign. That's how little regard that the system has to this requirement of less restrictive alternatives. Ashley E., 20, Ventura, autism. She was removed from her family home and placed into the custody of the public guardian. Neither the judge nor the public defender even once laid eyes on her. Talk about a violation of due process. Finally, Anna N., 26, Riverside, cerebral palsy. She was ordered to have ongoing visits with her father despite her protests and evidence that he had been raping her on an ongoing basis. This is outrageous. So in the future, I'm proposing that we have a town hall forum that focuses exclusively on limited conservatorships and this vulnerable population of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In closing, I urge you to go to our website at spectruminstitute.org/townhall to learn what you can do to advocate for the reform of this badly broken conservatorship system. I thank you for your attention, and please consider getting involved in this reform movement.
Before we finish this episode, we should hear what two elected officials from Alameda County had to say about the conservatorship problem in that part of Northern California. This is Berkeley City Council member Ben Bartlett.
And here in Berkeley, we are home of the probate court for Alameda County. So I feel a special responsibility. And so right away, once I was in office, I met Venus. It was great and introduced me to all these wonderful activists. And, that movie came out, you guys put together, the story about Las Vegas. What's it called? The
Guardians.
The Guardian. Yes. So I highly recommend everyone watch that movie. It highlights exactly what's going on. This fee for all, as was mentioned earlier. It is a fee for all. And in law, we call it perverse. Is it perverse incentive? What is it? Is it the term? When you're incentivized to do the wrong thing. And here, when you have this golden basket of a property or a trust full of money or anything of value, you're just incentivized to bill yourself against it over and over and over and over and over until there's nothing left. And that's what keeps happening. There's got to be a way to address this. We've got to work harder. I feel so limited in my powers because this is a larger, this is a state issue. This is a state and to some extent a county issue. We need those reforms, as we mentioned earlier, such as a statewide monitor for probate court and conservatorship. We need reforms like that because this is a massive transfer of wealth from one generation to the next being interrupted by this system.
And finally, let's hear what Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley had to say. He and his staff have been investigating complaints about the conservatorship proceedings in the local Superior Court there for several years now.
And having looked at this issue, I do think reforms are necessary. But the reforms aren't reforms that can just take place within the context of Alameda County. And I've had a number of meetings, countless meetings. We've met, and I've had advocates in some of these meetings. We've met with the public defender. We've met with the district attorney. We've met with legal assistants for seniors. I've had meetings with the social service agency staff that handle probate and conservatorship for the public sector. I've met with county council. I've met with the judiciary in Alameda County. I mean, I've had countless meetings on this subject over the last 2+ years. The efforts that we have afoot are, I've brought this to the attention of the Board of Supervisors, and the County Administrator's Office is quite aware of this as well. And one thing, I've been trying to push is for the Board of Supervisors to hold a work session on this. The board has not been able to schedule that work session. So I know I'm on the Social Services Committee for the county, and I've now been reassigned to the Public Protection Committee for the county. And so I'm going to be trying to get the Public Protection Committee and the Social Services Committee to hold a joint work session on this, even if we can't get the full Board of Supervisors to come up with a time for a work session.
Since the time the town hall was held, more attention was drawn to this problem by the airing of the New York Times documentary film titled Framing Britney. And then there was the release on Netflix of the fictional film titled I Care a Lot. As we conclude this episode of the Freedom Files, I'd like to remind elected officials that the movement for conservatorship reform is growing. We're not going away. It's time for the Chief Justice, Governor, and members of the legislature to start paying attention.
the lives of tens of thousands of vulnerable seniors and people with developmental disabilities who are entangled in these conservatorship proceedings are literally in their hands. For more information on the activities of Spectrum Institute to reform conservatorship and guardianship proceedings, go to our website at spectruminstitute.org. And please remember, in order to be successful in these efforts, we need your support. Become educated. Go to our website and read some of the articles you'll find there. Send us emails or letters to let us know that you support what we're doing. And click on the donate button so that you can make a financial contribution to our organization. We need your help. Thank you.
That concludes today's episode of the Freedom Files, a Pursuit of Justice podcast. For more information, visit the show's website at pursuitofjusticepodcast.com. The Freedom Files is produced and hosted by attorney Thomas F. Coleman. Assistant producers are Emmy Deckard and Trinity Pierce. Recording and post-production editing is done by Amaya Griskowitz. Artistic and technical advice from filmmaker Adam Soch, with podcast promotional assistance from Diane Coleman Rogers. The podcast is a collaboration of Spectrum Institute and the Law Office of Thomas F. Coleman.